Hey YouTube, what's up? Shooting this one in the old garage, the car hold, where we have yet to put our car once, but that's most people in America with garages, so I can pronounce garage. I know there's going to be some idiot out there that's like, you don't know how to say garage! I do. It's alright, idiot. It's alright. I can pronounce it. Settle down, boy. Then now there's going to be some other idiot that's like, no, it is pronounced garage. You were saying it right the first time. There's always an idiot. It doesn't matter what you do on the internet. There's always some idiot. Anyway, I'm doing this video in the garage because everyone else that lives here is asleep. And if I were to do this in my studio, then it would wake them up. I don't sleep because, normally during the day I have no thoughts whatsoever. People ask me, like, what's on your mind? I'm like, Cheetos, delicious Cheetos. But then at nighttime, when my head hits the pillow, it's like, destruction and creation are not opposing forces, but rather forces working in tandem. For what act of creation does not entail an act of destruction? Now I will list 5,000 examples. So, that's me. Before I get started on your guys' questions, I'd like to thank you for helping Not Productive raise $3,000 towards our $20,000 goal. If my math isn't too horrible, I believe that's 15%. If you haven't contributed yet or you don't know what it's all about, be sure to check it out. You get all kinds of cool little perks and stuff. I'll let you read about the perks on the website itself. It's down there. Let's get started on the questions. We ain't got all fucking night, do we? Do we? Maybe we do. I don't know. Let's go.
Hi, Amazing Atheist. I was wondering why there aren't more videos about the positives of atheism versus the negatives of religion, in terms of why aren't there more positive, just in general, more positive videos out there?
It's not a good idea to make desirability of a belief the litmus test for whether or not you accept that belief. Because if you just say to yourself, well, I'm just going to believe whatever's the most pleasant, then, William Lane Craig's arguments are going to persuade you every fucking time. You're always going to say to yourself, well, do I really want to believe I live in a cold, dark, lonely universe where I live this little speck of time and my contributions don't really matter and, beyond the range of this tiny little pale blue dot, this mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam, to paraphrase Carl Sagan, my actions don't ring beyond that. Nothing I do matters beyond that. And even in terms of what's going on the little blue dot, what I do is not that important. But then Christianity is telling people, listen, the creator of the universe, the ruler of all existence, is personally invested in your life. And for a lot of people, this is a pleasurable thing. Now, there are others who say, oh, God's like a despot and a tyrant and all that stuff, but a lot of people like despots and tyrants. The reason we rise despots and tyrants up to power is because a lot of people like that shit. They want someone who's in charge, someone who's, supposedly looking out for their interests. Atheism isn't really about saying, hey, look how happy you can be as an atheist. Look how awesome things are as an atheist. Because that's not the measure of a belief system in our minds. The measure of a belief system is, does it hold up to scrutiny? Does it ring true when you consider all the evidence? Christianity doesn't. Islam doesn't. That's why we're atheists, because none of those ideas, none of those creation myths are compelling to us. Now, that being said, there are certain advantages to being an atheist, and they're inherent to our criticisms of religion. Let's just pick off the top of my head. I'll just pick off the top of my head like one thing that's wrong with religion. Just one. There's many out there, but I'll just choose one. We'll say intolerance towards homosexuals, because that's the big culture war that's been going on in our country for the last 20 years or so. Is that there are gays out there that are trying to brainwash our children, and they're trying to do all this other horrible, devious stuff. And it's all the religious right pushing this. So the negative of religion is homophobia. The positive of atheism is that you have the ability to let go of that homophobia. Now, some atheists are still homophobic. Some atheists still say, I don't want them goddamn queers next to me. But most atheists are pretty much like, yeah, we accept that because we don't believe what this stupid ancient book has to say. So, to recap, the positives of atheism are that you don't have to deal with all of the drawbacks that come with theism. But, and this is important, atheism should never be sold to anyone as, this is great, this is going to make you feel good, this belief system is really going to have you feeling like you're walking on sunshine. No, it's not about that. It's about the truth. It's about evidence. It's not about how you feel. It's not about emotions. It's about being rational. Not that emotions aren't important, not that they don't have their place, but they shouldn't take precedence over truth.
Hi CJ, I'm just wondering how often you actually fake how many fucks you give about a subject in order to make an interesting video? Or like, how much you exaggerate your true feelings, if not? Ultimately, how much of what we see is actually the real you?
Have I ever faked enthusiasm for a topic just to make a better video? Well, I think that my real enthusiasm comes from performing. It comes from finding an interesting way to say something. So there's really no topic that I can't work up an interest in, because the topics I'm interested in, I'm not reacting emotionally or viscerally to them necessarily. Sometimes I do. Usually it's more of an intellectual thing, like, that's interesting. But then when it comes to getting in front of the camera, it's all about the performance. It's all about, how can I twist certain elements of this to, form little ironies. How can I find humor in this situation, even if it's something that's completely dark and bleak and horrible, especially if it's something dark and bleak and horrible, because, that's when I want to be smiling the widest. That's when I want to have the most jolly tone in my voice. I think that's part of the charm of what I do. At least I hope it is. I don't fucking know. I think it becomes kind of dangerous for anyone who's a performer, whether they consider themselves just an artist or an entertainer or a commentator or whatever, to become too obsessed with their own process, to become too conscious of everything they're doing. Because I think when you do that, you run the risk of becoming self-parody. I think you just have to be honest, and I try to maintain honesty, but I also try to be mindful of performance. So that's pretty much the best answer I could give you.
TJ, even though we can say with a reasonable degree of certainty that there is no afterlife, do you ever find yourself hoping for one? Thank you.
I don't think I've ever hoped for an afterlife. I sometimes wish that mortality wasn't so present in our day-to-day lives. I wish that we didn't have to walk around knowing that at any moment we could die. I mean, that's partially exciting, but mostly it's just inconvenient. It's not convenient to think to yourself, well, I got all these things I want to do, and I have no idea how much time I have left on this earth. I can guess that I probably have this amount because that's the average, but I don't really know. I could die right now. I could literally just, and that's it. And, I accomplished what I accomplished up until now. And that's all. So I do wish that I do wish that I had more control over the moment of my own death, and I do wish that human beings lived longer lives. But I don't think anyone truly wants to be immortal. I mean, just think about how bored you are most of the time in your day-to-day life. I mean, most people sit around like, fuck, I'm so fucking bored. What the fuck am I going to do? I've seen everything that's going on the internet today. I've run out of novelties to distract myself with. I don't feel like reading. I don't feel like watching a movie. I don't feel like eating anything. I'm just going to sit here. Maybe I'll talk to one of my friends. He's not answering. Maybe I'll write to someone on Skype or MSN or something. No, there's no one interesting on there either. I'm so bored. That's your life, and you want to do that forever? I mean, there's a lot of great moments in life, but I imagine after like 1,000 years, you've probably exhausted them pretty thoroughly. So, you know, the human lifespan, it'd be good if it was a little longer, but immortality, I don't know, doesn't seem like a lot of fun. At least not with our current, you know, software.
Okay, 2 questions. Do you see a mind change in America due to the Occupy movement and the whole banking crisis and so on and so forth at grass level? And how do you think that's being viewed in America? And 2, due to the change of the law recently and President Obama signing off on this detaining of without trial, do you believe that the American troops of America would indeed, if ordered so, detain their own people? Or do you think they'd rise up as they did in Egypt and support the people? Alright, thanks.
Sadly, I don't think that Occupy Wall Street is in the consciousness of most Americans at any given time. I don't think that it occurs to most people on any given day that there are people protesting, or what they're protesting, or why they're protesting. None of that enters into the minds of most Americans. They're, you know, I'm going and got my job, and I'm going to go home and watch my TV shows, and that's it. And then they go to sleep, and they do the same thing again the next day. And then when they got a free day, they go fishing, or hunting, or they just sit around in their boxer shorts, or they go do their laundry at the laundromat, or at home if they have a washer and dryer, or, you know, that's it. That's their life. They're not thinking about, you know, hey, my life sucks, I wonder why. They're not thinking, like, I wonder why it is that if I get sick, my finances are destroyed completely and utterly, and I have no hope of ever recovering in my lifetime because I just don't get paid enough. So, I don't think those people are thinking like that. So sadly, I don't think the Occupy movement is in the consciousness of most Americans. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. As for your second question, would our troops detain us? Would America's troops detain America's citizens? I don't know for sure, because I'm not a part of that culture. I'm not a part of the troop culture. I've never been in the military. I know very few people in the military, but my general sense, as a horribly cynical human being, is that they probably would. Because I just feel like, I know there's a lot of people that are in the military that really believe that they're there to fight for freedom, or that, you know, there's something heroic or brave about what they do. And in a lot of instances, there is. But I also think that there's a ton of people that are in the military because they want an excuse to be armed and have permission to shoot other people. I mean, do you think that sort of sociopathy is going to stop at home? You take some of those type of soldiers to New York City and tell them, you know, hey, these Occupy Wall Street people, they're terrorists. Stop them. You know, what do you think those guys are going to do? I think they're going to detain those people. I think they're going to detain the lucky ones. There's going to be some others at the protest who aren't so lucky.
Hey TJ, do you think Osama Bin Laden's death was a good thing? If so, why?
Yeah, Osama Bin Laden's death is a good thing in the sense that, let's say your house gets burned down. Let's say a crazed arsonist burns down your house, and it ruins your life, and, you know, your mother and father commit suicide, you know, a year apart because of the financial destruction. Your sister becomes addicted to drugs and starts selling her body on the streets. You become a depressed alcoholic with constant thoughts of committing suicide yourself and following in your parents' footsteps. But then, 9 years later, 9 years of misery and torment and shitty years later, the cops tell you, hey, we got the arsonist. We got him. Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing. Like, oh, good. It doesn't really repair any of the damage. It doesn't change the fact that your life was never rebuilt. And the fact that we got Osama doesn't change the fact that, 9/11 pretty much destroyed America. The America that existed before 9/11. Now, it didn't destroy America because, that building was destroyed and then we never recovered from that. It destroyed America because it scared us into handing George W. Bush keys to absolute power, and he ravaged us, and Obama continues in that tradition.
Hey TJ, I was wondering, where do you draw the line between when you can use the Constitution as an argument and when you can't? Because in the Occupy Wall Street videos, you say that it's against the Constitution for the police to remove the protesters, and there you're using it as an argument. And also in your Pat Condell video, you say that religious freedom is a part of the Constitution, but then you make the Unconstitutional Me video and criticize the Constitution and people who use it as an argument. Maybe that's just strict constitutionalists, I'm not sure, but where do you draw the line there? And also, I want to ask you about Richard Dawkins' comment. He once made a comment in an interview about Christianity being better than Islam because it's, not as, he doesn't think it's as dangerous for humanity or whatever. What's your comment on that?
Well, the Constitution video I did was kind of poorly done. It wasn't poorly done in the sense that I don't agree with what I said in it. It was poorly done in the sense that it really should have been like a 30 or 40 minute video that no one would have watched because my position really wasn't clear in it. So let me just try to encapsulate it and compress it into an even smaller, even more probably bastardized version of itself. I'm not saying like we should get rid of the Constitution. I'm saying that we have to interpret it as a living document. We can't just be rigid like, well, that's what the Constitution said and that's what the Constitution meant. It has to be flexible. We have to make allowances for change in our society. We have to be governed by the living, by the people who are here now, not by some people who've been dead for 200 fucking years.
Are you going to do any more of the distressed watcher videos and the trailer failures? Just curious. I really like those. Thank you.
Yes, the Distressed Watcher is coming back with the launch of Not Productive. As soon as we get Not Productive going, the Distressed Watcher is going to be making a return. Trailer Failure will probably be making a return, but Trailer Failure is going to be a lot broader than it was. It's not just going to be about movie trailers. It's going to be about game trailers. It's going to be about television commercials. It's going to be an assessment of pretty much everything that goes on in this country's media. That's the new Trailer Failure. It'll probably not carry the name Trailer Failure anymore. I don't know what the new incarnation will be called, but it will be a lot broader in scope and hopefully a lot more funny and entertaining.
Hi TJ. What do you think of a term that adults say when you get bullied? You should be yourself and people will like you. Because I think that's total bullshit. So what do you think of it?
Well, it's patently bullshit. I think anyone who's gone to school has heard this from teachers. Maybe they've even heard it from their parents. You just gotta be yourself. But it's very clear that they don't really want you to be yourself. Because every time you express a viewpoint that doesn't conform to their rigid standards of how a human being should conduct themselves, all of a sudden it's, what are you doing? You need to join the herd. You need to be part of the collective. And then you're like, well, what about being myself? Yeah, you need to be yourself within the confines of the collective. What we meant when we said be yourself is that you're the Borg drone that's fixing the power relays, and that Borg drone, by contrast, is working on the navigations array. So you see how there's a slight difference there. But yeah, you all have to be part of the collective. Individuality, that's not allowed. We didn't mean be yourself as in be a unique person with your own thoughts, feelings, and opinions. We meant be yourself in the sense of be somewhat distinctive, but in a way that we can utilize you. So that's what they mean by be yourself. And I don't know, I was never told be myself and people will like me. They never added that on for me. I guess they must have known that was just a lost cause in my case. But no, if you want to be liked, don't be yourself. Look at how everyone else is behaving and try to act like that. But if you want to be awesome, then be yourself. Be truly yourself. Not what your parents and your teachers mean when they say be yourself. Be your actual self. You'll be happier in the long run, I think.
Hey TJ, you said on a recent video, and I don't remember which video it was, I think it was that huge Q&A you did on TJ Does Life, that you thought Lincoln was both gay and an atheist. That's a really interesting theory, and one that I've never really heard before, so I was just wondering if you could expand upon that and tell me a little more about it. Thanks, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, well, it's clear from Lincoln's quotations that he was skeptical. He said that Christianity was not his religion, that he held, no real stock in the Bible. He described himself as a skeptic. So he was, probably an atheist, maybe a deist. Some people would say probably a deist, maybe an atheist, but whatever. The point is, he didn't subscribe to any sort of theistic belief structure. So, whatever. As for the gay thing, that's a little bit more disputed. Lincoln did have a poem that talked about a guy marrying another guy, and he did sleep in the same bed as other men frequently throughout his lifetime, which, for that time period, was not unusual, because beds were considered a luxury item, so a lot of times guys would share beds. What is unusual is that he continued doing so even after he became president. Now, is that because he's so humble that he just keeps living like the common man even when he's on top? Or is it because he just really likes sharing his bed with men? There's also a lot of very intimate letters that he sent to male friends that make it seem as if he has more than just friendship going on with them. I would suggest you just do some investigating yourself. But yeah, there's stuff out there to suggest that there's a distinct possibility.
Hi TJ, I was just wondering what your favorite Christmas movie was, or what your favorite holiday movie was. Alright, thank you. Bye.
My favorite Christmas movie is Die Hard. A lot of people say that doesn't count because it's not overtly about Christmas, but it takes place around Christmas and it's got a lot of Christmas-related stuff going on. But if that doesn't count, then Gremlins. You can't say that Gremlins doesn't fucking count. Christmas is integral to that fucking movie. So, Gremlins. That movie's awesome because it has little green demons, torturing a town full of, elderly people and dogs and cats and children, and they're all just suffering at the hands of these little impish demons that seem to have, ADHD out the ass, and they're just fucking tearing the town up and singing and dancing and being uproarious and drinking and smoking, and they're awesome. I just love them. I mean, I think as a kid, that was one of my early role models. When I was 6, 7, 8 years old, watching Gremlins, I'm like, Gremlins are cool. I like them. That's how I want to conduct myself, which probably not the lesson of the movie. If there is a lesson of the movie, there's not a lesson of the movie. But for me, there was, and it's be a gremlin.
Hey, I just wanted to know why you have such sensationalist video titles like Fascist America. Clearly the US isn't fascist, and it's not going to become fascist anytime soon.
Well, I mean, sensationalist video titles are part of the YouTube game, but really the fascism thing, that's where you're drawing the line? I mean, okay, when I said fascism, I wasn't referring to the specific political philosophy of fascism. I was really using it as being interchangeable with authoritarianism or totalitarianism, just where you have no rights and the state controls everything. And I mean, between SOPA pretty much taking control of the internet, which, I mean, we don't know if that's going to pass yet or not, whatever. The National Defense Authorization Act, which is almost certainly going to just be a thing. It's going to be signed into law. And there's going to be some legal challenges to it. We don't know how that's going to turn out. Probably not good. But, you know, that takes away your right to trial by jury. I mean, you know, if you're classified as a terrorist and we have information that shows that, you know, protesters are classified in America by the government as low-level terrorists, you know, pieces are falling into place. I mean, you can ignore them and just be like, fascism, that's a ways away. I don't got to worry about that. But I think you're being a little bit overly optimistic, honestly.
Does this wall make me gay?
No, I don't think so. I've often said this, you know, if you're a straight guy, I don't usually resort to these labels, by the way. I don't really talk about things for the most part in terms of gay and straight and bisexual and transsexual and pansexual and potsexual and colander sexual. I don't usually talk about things in those terms unless I have to, because there's just no other way to explain it. But if you're a guy who self-identifies as straight, it's totally okay to want to have sex with Justin Bieber, simply because he is more feminine than most girls. So, have at it, my friend. Your wall is not gay at all.
How do you personally interpret the First and Second Amendments?
Well, I'm a big First Amendment guy. So I always want the First Amendment to be interpreted as broadly as possible, where it grants me the right to say or do pretty much anything, as long as it's not harming another human being against their will. The Second Amendment, I'm not as big a fan of. I'm not a gun person. So I'm for a little bit more restriction there. Because it says the right to bear arms. And a lot of people say it just applies to the militia. A lot of people say it applies to everyday citizens. You know, that's a semantics debate I want no part of. Let's just think, let's not even focus on the wording. Let's just focus on what actually makes sense in the real world. Does it make sense for a person to own a fully automatic weapon? No. Maybe there's some debate to be had there, but for me, no. Handgun, alright, you know, you could say home defense, you know, you don't want to wait for the police to show up, you want to take out the burglar yourself, you know, you feel he's a threat to your family or your person. I'm kind of okay with that. Shotgun to go hunting, rifle to go hunting, whatever. When it comes to things like bombs and, you know, like tanks, at that point it's like, no, I don't think people need to be fucking with that. And even most conservatives are going to draw the line at some point and be like, yeah, I guess we don't need tanks. But then there's going to be the crazy fucks who are like, yeah, we need tanks because we got to fight against the government if they ever come to kick our ass. No, the government, if the army starts marching down the street, no weapon that you could afford is going to be able to contend with them, okay? You're just not going to be able to do it.
Hey TJ, what's going on? You've made it pretty clear in all your other videos that you are a huge Marilyn Manson fan. I was just wondering, how do you think he as a performer holds up next to a guy like Gigi Allen in terms of like stage antics and pretty much what he was all about as like a shock rocker icon? Thanks a lot. See you later.
Well, you gotta judge him by something of a different standard, because Manson was a mainstream performer, whereas Gigi Allen was underground. You can get away with a lot more in the underground. I think for the level of fame that he had, Manson's act was extremely controversial for its time. Gigi Allen's act was also extremely controversial, even for the underground. I think today, though, Gigi Allen would probably just be laughed at, because, I mean, this generation grew up with, you know, the internet and, like, Goatsy and you know, horrible stuff that no human being should ever see. So now I think Gigi Allen would be like, ha ha, naked, yeah, he's silly. He's a silly guy. Yeah, it's a wholesome family show. I brought my daughters, you know. I don't think he'd be controversial anymore. So yeah, I think that they were both equally controversial for the level of fame they possessed.
Hey TJ, atheists such as you always say that the burden of proof is on theists, but they're the ones proposing an answer, and atheists are the ones that still continue to say to them that they have to prove to them that God exists. But they propose an answer and you just turn it down. So really, the burden of proof is on you to prove that God does not exist.
Okay. Well, yeah, sure, theists propose an answer. That's true. What you said is true. I'm not really understanding your logical leap from theists have an answer that they've proposed to the question of, where do we come from, why are we here, blah, 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 blah. All that meaning of life stuff. They have an answer, and it's that, 2,000 years ago, a naked guy was nailed to some sticks, and, a couple thousand years before that, a few thousand years before that, there was a guy just kind of floating around in nothingness, and he decided to create a universe, and that's how it all came to be. They have that answer. What I'm failing to understand is how them having an answer translates to the burden of proof being on me, the person who never proposed some sort of crazy explanation. Because there's no other scenario, and you would agree with me, that the person coming up with the crazy answer doesn't have to justify their answer. Like, if you walked up to me and said, hey, what time does the mall open? And I told you it doesn't open until you chop off your, legs and arms with a chainsaw and sing Yankee Doodle Dandy. You're not just going to be like, oh, that's the answer. Because he has an answer, therefore the burden of proof is on me to prove that that's not true. I mean, just consider this. You seem like you're probably a Christian, or at least some manner of theist if you're saying this stuff. Whatever explanation you believe in, let's just say it's Christianity. If you believe in Christianity, you're not just stating, I believe in Christianity. You're stating, I reject every other creation myth. I reject, Zeus, and I reject, Romulus and Remus, and I reject that, we were fucking farted out by the volcano god. All that stuff, all those explanations that human beings have come up with throughout human history, you reject all of that to believe whatever it is that you believe. And you don't say to yourself, well, they have answers, so their answers are equally as valid as my answer. What you're saying to yourself is, well, they haven't proven their stuff, but we've proven ours. But you haven't really proven yours. You've just convinced yourself that you've proven it because you came up with this little, nonsensical circular logic mind game that says that the burden of proof is on us to show you that it's false. When what it really is an unfalsifiable hypothesis. Someone at some point came up with this shit. Well, it probably evolved over time, numerous people, oral traditions, all that horse shit. And it came about. And now, because it's been around for so long, you just say, well, it's true, and it's up to you to prove it's not true. No, it's not up to me to prove it's not true, because it's never been proven true. Until something has been proven true, you don't accept it. I mean, you can claim any outrageous thing you want. You could tell me I could turn this toaster into a bunny rabbit. And if I say, oh yeah, prove it, you're like, hey, it's not up to me to prove that I can turn the toaster into a bunny rabbit, because I'm making the claim. Therefore, you have to prove that I can't turn it into a bunny rabbit. I mean, you see how this doesn't make sense, right? You see how what you said is just total nonsense, and you might have well just been going, you see that, right? I've clarified that for you, huh? Okay, cool.
You're very big on talking about the human conscious and our motives and stuff, and so I was really kind of interested to see how you would respond to this question. How much of what we do you think is solely based on a subconscious level of survival, be it overeating because we need food to survive, or whistling at pregnant chicks because we know they're capable of bearing our child, or what,
Well, I have a hypothesis. As a non-scientist, let me just say, I'm basically a dancing clown. Sometimes the dancing clown touches upon a relevant topic, but at the end of the day, the dancing clown is a dancing clown. He's not a scientist, he's not a philosopher, he's none of those things. So, here's the dancing clown's hypothesis on what you just asked. I think that up until a very recent point, human beings were undergoing, the process of evolution by the means of natural selection and a few other factors that don't play anywhere near as large a role. But natural selection really doesn't weigh too heavily on modern Western society. It just doesn't. So evolution has kind of stopped. And yet we have all these traits. All these traits that were somewhat necessary once, that may have been, to some survival benefit before, but now they're not. But the thing is, most of those bad traits are no longer being bred out. The things that we did that weren't necessarily to our survival benefit, they're not getting eliminated anymore. So we're just gonna, I think with each successive generation, we're just gonna get more and more fucked up. We're just gonna have more and more crazy problems because we as a species can now afford to be completely eccentric in the sense that natural selection isn't really acting on us anymore. But on the other hand, with increased technology, we can ill afford to be eccentric because we're going to end up fucking destroying ourselves. Someone's just going to be like, I'm going to blow up the world. Why? I don't know, just 'cause. Boom. So, but that's kind of the way I view it. Because there's no pressure that's getting rid of things that aren't necessarily beneficial to our survival and procreation anymore. So we're just going to become more and more eccentric. We're going to veer off in all these strange directions. And it's going to be just a bigger and bigger freak show spectacle with each succeeding generation. And hopefully there'll be a few generations so that it gets really fucking wacky. I don't know. But once again though, Dancing Clown does not know what he's talking about. Probably wrong. Anyway, that's my answer video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.